What's up, everybody? My name is Jared Schultz. Here's my teacher, Mr. Grimsley, and this is episode 3 of 3 O'Clock Sports. We've got a few topics to talk about today, and we'll just get right into it. First topic is a little recap of last week in the NFL, and the big topic that everyone was talking about was the big brawl at the end of the Browns-Steelers Thursday night game where Myles Garrett removed Mason Rudolph's helmet off of his head and swung it at him and made contact with him that multiple players ended up getting involved and getting in trouble. And overall, what do you think of that whole situation?
Well, I was getting ready for bed. I said, you know what, this game's over. I'm going to go to sleep. And then I got up into bed and I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to see what the final score was, if anything happened. And it was right at that play. I got to see it live right when it happened. And my first thought, because, when seeing it live, I didn't have anybody, any talk show host or anybody to change my opinion a bit. My first thought was, I've never seen anything like that in my life, and he's done for the season.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too. I was watching the game at home, and I was just watching it, and I saw that happen. My initial thought was he had to have gotten provoked because people that know Myles Garrett know that he's very calm and he's very, I guess, gentle in his demeanor. He isn't really a fiery type of person. I mean, he's had some bad penalty calls throughout the year that some people have tried to label him a dirty player, but I don't think that's the case. He's always been a very calm person, and he's never really gotten fired up or anything like that. So my thought was he got provoked, and well, honestly, he did get provoked by Mason Rudolph, but that's still no excuse to remove his helmet and at least hit him with it. If he would have removed his helmet, maybe threw it down, they get in a shoving match, everything's okay. But him hitting him with the helmet escalated to Marquise Pouncey throwing punches at Myles Garrett, led to Larry Ogunjobi pushing down Mason Rudolph later, and it led to multiple suspensions and multiple fines, and overall it was just a big mess. Really tough loss for the Browns because he's arguably their best or second best player, so he's appealing the suspension. I imagine they won't.
It all comes down if I'm walking in the street and somebody ticks me off and provokes me, and I take a weapon and hit him with it on the head, I'm probably going to jail.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll move on from that to basically Lamar Jackson. I was a guy who wasn't really a big believer in Lamar Jackson, and he has been playing lights out for the first half of the season. I wasn't so sure because he really hadn't played anybody, and well, Ravens are 8-2, and he just continues to light up almost every team he plays. Do you think that puts him in the front running for MVP?
I think it has to, because a lot of people didn't see that team as being a Super Bowl caliber team or a team that was able to play like they are now, and he is the sole reason. When you watch, the defense looks really good, but when you watch, he's throwing touchdowns, he's running for touchdowns, he's doing everything that MVP needs to do to win that award.
Yeah, he's been having a great season. It sucks as a Browns fan for him to have to play in our division. We have to play him twice a year, even though we did actually beat him early in the year and probably made him have one of his worst games. I mean, he's just his mechanics and his accuracy and his overall fundamentals of just throwing a football have gotten better. They're not perfect. He still makes mistakes, but they're good enough to the point where as long as he gets that run game going, and if Mark Ingram plays well, that it really simplifies defenses because it forces them to play simple coverages, so that way they don't do anything too complex.
Yeah, I think no matter how much film you watch, too, the Ravens are doing some things offensively, the way they're running the ball and with their offensive sets that these teams haven't seen an offense like that. And even if you study film, I think the first time you see that in real life, it kind of hits you.
Yeah. Because
there's multiple sets, the way they use the tight ends, the way they use the backs. I think just teams weren't ready for this, and his athleticism is just insane.
Yeah, it's basically a kind of offense where you can't really stop it. You can just slow it down to a certain extent. But yeah, looks like Lamar Jackson's in the running for MVP. It looks like right now it's him or Russell Wilson. So, and we will move on to the last little bit we'll talk about, particularly in this past week of the NFL. The Jaguars played their first game with Nick Foles back at quarterback. And Foles himself looked fine, looked like he's always looked, but the Jaguars themselves got beaten pretty bad. I don't remember what the exact score was, but they got beat by double digits, and it just makes you wonder, do they go back to Gardner Minshew?
I think Indianapolis is a decent team. I don't think Minshew, he's been just each week getting worse and worse. So I think, Nick Foles is refreshing. He started out well. He had a good drive he had that pass to Shark for a touchdown. Yeah. I just think the team in general is struggling a little bit. I don't think between the two, whoever's the quarterback, is really going to make much difference at this point. I think that we need to see Foles play against a team that's not as good as Indianapolis. Indianapolis is a solid team, especially when they got Brissett back there.
Yeah, tough game for the Jaguars. Like I said, Nick Foles himself looked fine. It's just the team didn't look very great. The defense struggled against Indianapolis, and I actually personally am not the biggest Nick Foles guy. I think he's an all right starter or a really good backup. I think they might as well have stuck with Minshew because he's a rookie. He needs to get as much experience as he can, and he just has more big play ability than Nick Foles does. Nick Foles is not very mobile. Minshew has shown he has really good pocket presence and mobility, and I just think he gives them a better chance to win.
And the Colts just came off a loss to the Dolphins. I bet they were pretty ticked and ready to play.
Yeah.
They weren't going to mess around with that team.
All right, we'll move on to college football playoff rankings. They came out last night. The top 6 teams are actually the same. It's still LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, and then the top 2 out are Alabama and Georgia. Overall, did you think there should have been any movement in that top 6?
No, I didn't really notice anything. There was some, beyond that, there were some upsets, but there was nothing that changed my mind.
Yeah, I kind of feel similar. The only thing maybe you could argue is maybe putting Oregon above Bama just because they lost to it, and that'll actually help us transition to what I really wanted to talk about was Alabama. They're without Tua, for the rest of the year. Can they still win out and possibly squeak into the playoff and do well without Tua?
I feel like Alabama is one of those teams like Ohio State. They recruit so well that if somebody goes down, there's somebody just as good to jump in there and replace them.
Yeah.
So I have to imagine that Alabama has another quarterback that's just, that's going to be just as good, if not better. The team's just so good. It's, across the board, they're just this good, solid team. So I don't think, losing that quarterback. And actually, when they played LSU, I thought he was, the one who didn't look as good. He came on towards the end a little bit, but he started out, he had that fumble. I thought they might have been better off without him in the LSU game.
Yeah, he looked kind of banged up in that game, and I think they kind of just wanted to get him back so they could try and ensure that they went out the rest of the season and get into the playoff. Personally, I think they could get into the playoff. It kind of depends on how Georgia plays. Because usually because there's 3 SEC teams in the top 5, they will eventually cancel each other out, and only one will make it most likely. So we'll just have to see.
I personally hope they don't make it because I don't think they have a shot to win it. So I think they'll be, I think they're going to be just fine without him. But I don't think with him they were going to win it after losing to LSU. So I really just hope that they're out of the conversation.
Yeah, I agree. Bama's good, but I don't see him beating LSU or Ohio State anytime soon, at least without Tua. And quickly we'll touch on the NBA. Carmelo Anthony made his debut with the Trailblazers last night. He came in, he had 10 points, 4 rebounds, and he shot 4 for 14 from the field, which doesn't sound great, but there were some positive signs in that game. Did you watch?
I didn't watch the game, but I know enough about Carmelo. He's a streaky player. He doesn't always seem to give his best effort. Obviously his first night, he's going to give you 100%.
Yeah.
And 10 points, that's not bad. 4 of 14 shooting's not great, not great at all. But he's streaky. You never know what you're getting. Some days you're going to get a Carmelo who's playing hard, and some days you're just going to get the lazy loafing Carmelo. That's why he wasn't on a team. So obviously I think his first game he's going to be pretty good, or he's going to give his best effort. 4 of 14 shooting. He might have gave his best effort, but that shooting's not going to win him any awards.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that shooting goes. I personally I think he looked... take away from the numbers, I think he looked fine. He looked to flow in the offense pretty well for not being on an NBA team in over a year. And, I think it looked smooth. The jump shot looked smooth. He was 2 for 3 from 3. They didn't have Damian Lillard that night, which makes you wonder, if they have Damian Lillard, that'll take away from, the defenses getting thrown at Carmelo Anthony, which could possibly make his role almost less important but more effective, if you kind of get what I mean. So I think with Damian Lillard, maybe he looks well. But another thing I want to talk about in the NBA is the Boston Celtics, who were a team that had a ton of potential. They had Kyrie Irving and Al Horford and a really deep roster, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, who had been kind of underperforming. Now with those guys gone, enter Kemba Walker, and Enes Kanter has been playing kind of a similar role that Horford was playing. They're the second best team in the NBA according to the record. They're sitting at 11-2 or 12-2, I believe. And it makes you wonder: is it that? Do you think Kemba is that much better than Kyrie, or do you think Kyrie Irving's locker room issues were really that much of a problem that's why the Celtics were underperforming.
Well, I think Kyrie Irving was a problem because he's a problem where he is now with Brooklyn. And it just seems like wherever he goes, he causes some problems within the locker room. Sometimes the most talented teams, you can look at the Browns, they look so talented at the beginning of the year. They aren't always successful. And with the Celtics, I like Kemba Walker. He's always been on a team that's not been that good with Charlotte and, some of those teams.
Which I think has developed some of his ability to be a team player because he dealt with being on, honestly, a pretty bad team for a long time. So.
And Kanter's a good center. Do I think they're going to, keep this momentum up? I think they're going to hit some losing streaks just like every other team. In the NBA, you play till summer. It's in June they're still playing. So are they going to keep this momentum? Probably not. They're not that good of a team. Would I be surprised if they do keep winning? No. But I don't think they're going to be the best team in the NBA.
Yeah, overall, they look really good. Obviously, this won't keep up for forever. I just think they're playing so well because finally, without Kyrie Irving, they're playing almost for each other instead of it's almost like they don't have a leading player because Kemba Walker, he was that player for the Hornets, but I think his personality, it's like they're playing as a team, and Jaylen Brown has stepped up a lot with the new contract he's gotten. Jason Tatum has actually been surprisingly quiet, but he still does well. Enes Kanter's look good. The whole team, they're deep, they're good. They could possibly come out of the East. I think it's between them and Philly. Obviously, Milwaukee's always a threat with Giannis, but the Celtics, they look good.
Depth's important in the NBA too. It's not just those starting five; it's the guys that come in after them. And if you have some depth, especially injuries deplete teams. So if you have depth, you can really win some games in the NBA.
Yep, for sure. All right, last topic, probably the biggest topic in all of sports this past week is Colin Kaepernick had his much anticipated open workout that was actually delayed an hour, so that way it would be completely open to the NFL press. I know you were telling me that you didn't see all the throws, but from what you saw, what do you think of the whole thing just in general?
His deep ball looked okay. I didn't see anything like. There's a lot of great quarterbacks who are great on air, just playing against nobody.
Yeah.
It's become kind of a circus, and he was the one that kind of moved the session right before it was supposed to be. I was shocked to see that there's been so much pro support for him. Some guys like Stephen A. Smith had some negative comments and said he was kind of a circus and maybe not to sign him. I really thought, that he'd get a little more support just because he's had so much support.
Yeah.
The NFL, the argument always is there are some really, really atrocious backups in the NFL. So I think that's why people say, how can he not play in the NFL? And at some point, I would say there's some college kids who could probably step in for some of these backups. There's the argument about money. How much money does he want? There's the argument, will he cause any problems with the team or fans wanting to come to the game? And that's a legitimate argument because the question is he a decent backup or is he a starting quarterback? And if he's a starting quarterback, is he going to win you games that are more games than the circus is worth? And one of the things is he's already got a lawsuit that he's won against the NFL or that went into, they settled.
Yeah.
Are you opening up yourself to another lawsuit if you sign him? So as far as can he still play? He's probably better than some of these backups because some of these backups are really bad.
Yeah, I watched every throw because I watched the workout live because I was genuinely curious. And, like I said, it's really hard to look bad when you're not playing against anybody. His deep ball looked okay. There were a couple throws that weren't great, but, he showed he still has the arm talent. His mechanics look smooth and everything. But, obviously, let's just take away from all the antics, him kneeling on the sideline. When it comes to, can he still play? Me personally, 3 years ago, I thought he could have been a starter because in his last season in the NFL, he started, I think it was 12 games, and his touchdown-interception ratio was second best in the league. He was statistically very good. He made good decisions. And overall, he wasn't great, but he was still a good starter. But obviously, all the antics and the big circus, like you said, that comes with him just ended up him getting almost blackballed by the NFL. So back then, I do think he could have played, but now you just wonder with the way deep, like with the progression. I mean, it's only been 3 years, and already like passing numbers and quarterbacks are like we have like guys like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson that just makes offenses so much different now that you wonder like, is he really that good?
Yeah, before this stuff happened, before any of this stuff happened, defenses kind of figured out, defensive coordinators kind of figured him out a little bit, and he looked like he was starting to regress a little bit. So I think that's one of the issues or one of the concerns is that I think he even lost his starting job before any of this came. Before any of this happened, he got benched. Yeah. So
people don't like to remember that.
So that's one of the things is, you're taking a quarterback that's been benched once before because of his play, hasn't played for 3 years. The game has changed a little bit. I don't know how much. I know you got a lot more differences with coverages. Like the Patriots are just doing some insane things on defenses that are completely fooling teams.
Yeah.
So can he play? Probably. Is he as good or as bad as some of these backups? Probably. But those backups are probably very cheap, and they don't have any. They don't have any baggage or luggage, that they have to worry about. And most of them are backups that the teams don't expect to have starting, that they'll put somebody else in or pick somebody else up if they have to.
Yeah, I agree. When it comes to just pure talent, how he plays, I mean, guys like Luke Falk and Chase Daniel, who are backups who have played, really just aren't good, but they don't bring any locker room issues or potential issues with the NFL.
And here's some things maybe we don't think about. Some of those guys are working with the starting quarterback, or they're helping the coach, or they're doing things on the sidelines. They might not be playing, but they might be doing things on the sidelines. Maybe they can read great defenses, and they're helping the starting quarterback.
That actually reminds me of probably one of the greatest stories I've ever heard from backup quarterback. This is a little off topic, but you just reminded me. The Patriots preparing for the Super Bowl, their backup quarterback, Brian Hoyer, he was given the job by Bill Belichick when they first started preparing for the Super Bowl was take the second team offense and basically call plays and mimic the Rams offense exactly to a T. And I guess Hoyer did that so well, that is why they were so well prepared. Because if you remember going into last year, Patriots defense wasn't particularly great like they are this year. They had their moments where they looked good, but they had gotten a lot of points put up on them before. And, the reason why I'm saying this is because, is Colin Kaepernick willing to do this stuff to be a good backup? Because I feel like he's expecting to come in and play and just go back to being a star like he was in that first season he came in as a starter. Is he willing to not take a ton of money, be in it for the team, and not be in it for himself? At this point, I think he's more in his image than he is just
there is some responsibility to being a backup. So they do have, they're not just, guys that just sit on the sidelines with their helmet off and just hang out. So, like you said, is he ready to do some of that? Wherever he would go, he'd have to earn his position. That's for sure.
Yeah. Overall, could he still play? We kind of maybe not.
And you talk about the circus. If I was a team like the Bengals, who are 0-16, maybe that would get some people to go to the game. I don't think you could give me tickets to a Bengals game unless I was going to see Lamar Jackson or some star that or Mahomes. I don't think I'd really want to go to a Bengals game right now.
Yeah, I don't even think Bengals fans want to go.
No.
But overall, we'll just have to see what happens over the next few weeks, or maybe into next season. We'll see where he goes. But that's all we have to talk about today. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, thanks for watching. As always, leave a like, subscribe, and we will see you next week.
All right, see you later.